Hey everyone, I brought my coffee. I don't know if that was a little coffee talk this morning. We'll do Bloody Marys.
I was going to say, I should have brought the Bloody Mary. I liked that touch, by the way. It was just, I felt, should I do that this early if I'm the first speaker? It could go one of two ways, So I did water. Bloodies later.
Love it. Can't wait. Well, thank you all for being here. I'm really excited to have Brett here. This is an expert. We are going to be talking about the evolution of B2B marketing, but how you're creating a successful strategy, especially in this environment, right? I mean, it's just a challenging time right now. So we're just going to try to dive into a few of these key themes to help us all set some successful strategies. So let's give a little background. Brett, why don't you tell everybody about you to help set the stage?
Absolutely. So I'm Brett Rafuse. I'm the Vice President of Integrated Marketing for Cisco Networking. And you're probably going, why is this B2B dude on stage kicking off the day? We'll get there, I promise. I also have another dirty secret. In addition to being a B2B marketer, I also didn't start my career as a marketer. I actually started in tech. I was like a developer, I think, when I got out of school, and I came to marketing in a very roundabout way. But I've been in integrated marketing for the last decade for some pretty big brands, and I have found my calling in life. Like, y'all, as marketers, are my people. I would have said 10 years ago, I was like, oh, I'm in marketing, but I'm not a marketer. Now I feel like I've been adopted in, which feels great. So
I love it. Well, we're glad to have you here, part of the family. So one of the beauty and the challenge with marketing is just that it's constantly changing, right? And so it requires us all to create a much more robust strategy. We have to do more now than we did in the past. So tell us, Brett, a little bit about how things have changed for you, what you're looking at now versus maybe a few years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all want to create brands that people love, but we also have to find ways to monetize our brands, right? And the pressure that we're under as marketers in terms of creating bottom line revenue, in terms of contributing to customer life cycle, customer success in kind of a services world, right, is very intense and insane, right? And I think for me, the thing that I've seen is just the rise of being very data-driven, right? And using that data in order to create personalized and compelling experiences so that whether you're an influencer in a purchase decision or whether you're the decision maker in that purchase decision or whether you're someone who is hands-on in the background using the products, the services that we sell, every one of those individuals in a B2B sale has an opportunity to become a lover of our brands. Right? And as we start to use data to put together a picture of our customers at the individual level, and then at the account level, you start to be able to see where do we create personalized experiences? How can we make individuals engage with us in better ways? I love that we're here at an event. All of the Brand Innovators leadership team was talking about in-person events. Isn't it really frustrating when you show up to an event, not this one by the way, for maybe the 5th year in a row, and it's like, hi, who are you? Right? Oh.
Cheers. Cheers.
There we go.
Okay, much better.
There we
much
go.
better.
I like this. That's a quality. That's a quality good. Bloody Mary, actually.
Those are good.
Yeah. So just back to that story. When you show up to an event, right, and you've been there for the 5th time, don't you want people to know that you're coming back, right? And that's just a very minor example, right, of personalization in an event world that in a digital marketing space, we can really take, to the 11th level. And data enables us to do that. And we can create personalized experiences for the accounts that we engage with in a B2B world. We can create individualized experiences depending on who we're engaging with, the persona, the industry, and I'm just really, really encouraged by the capabilities that we have to do that, all based on data.
Yeah, no, that's exactly, and it seems so simple, right? But it's not easy. Like, we get that, completely. So actually, let's dive into that a little bit more, and just the customer, right? The client, the customer is at the center of everything that we're doing. So tell us a little more about that, how you factor that in, right? Just that customer
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna go back to that kind of one and done experience, right? In a pressured sales world, we used to think about conversion, right? You want somebody to come into the top of your marketing funnel, and you are beholden to those conversion metrics, right? But if we think about it just a little bit differently, and we think full customer life cycle, right? The conversation can actually change, because in a B2B sense, you actually are not looking at every person in an account to convert. You're looking at the aggregate engagement for the buying centers in order to drive revenue. And from a customer lifecycle perspective, how are you making sure to grow that revenue and increase your share of wallet, so to speak, over time, right? So some of the things that we're trying to do at Cisco, and some of the things that I've done in the past at Microsoft, is really thinking about how do we do that full customer lifecycle engagement, and using data to be able to say, okay, I'm going to create this experience for these individuals within the account, and I have gaps in terms of my buying center. What are you going to do to go acquire individuals that fill the gaps for those personas, and then start to bring people together, influencers, decision makers, execution level folks, that can all help to influence the buying decision and growing the business within that particular account, right? I like to say that in a perfect world, when we get really, really good at data, our chief revenue officers and our chief sales officers, they're not going to be asking marketing about conversion, right? What we should be saying is we should be saying, where are the accounts that you want to grow? Okay, great. Do we have coverage for all the individuals within those accounts that we need to engage with that can grow that business, right? It's not about leads. It's not about conversion metrics. It's about the depth and the breadth of customer engagement within that account. So then your conversation changes, right? You're talking with your chief revenue officer as a CMO, and you're saying, okay, great. Do I have coverage within the accounts that matter to you? Awesome. If I don't, I owe you something. I owe you more engagement. And that engagement will enable you to grow revenue, accelerate your deal, etc. In the places where you might not know that you've got engagement, we get to have a different conversation. That conversation's about the value that we as marketers bring, right? Marketing as a revenue contributor. Marketing as revenue generation, and sitting down with those sales leaders and saying, okay, well, if we've got tons of engagement and you don't have any pipeline commitment, maybe we need to have a different conversation, right? And that becomes much easier for me, that bimodal. Have I covered your accounts? Do we have the right people engaged? And if we have people engaged that you don't think there's opportunities for, then let's show you why there is something that you didn't even know. Right? So that context, I feel like the customer context just becomes king in these conversations. And the only way that we can do that is if we're starting to string together all of our various engagements, our touch points, our anonymous touch points, our known touch points, our in-person event engagements with our webinar engagements, and putting that all together on the same kind of sales and marketing system set, right, gives you a much better view of the places where you can grow your business and the impact that marketing has. And then, and I think we're gonna get to budget. Like, there is your business case, y'all, for in a very tough economy, how we need to invest in marketing as a revenue driver, as a critical component of business.
I love it. I'm just going to keep drinking my Bloody Mary here, because you're teeing up the questions like you're one step ahead. I love it. But I couldn't agree more. And I think you've talked about it, Brett, when we were talking earlier, but just that triangle of like sales, marketing, and customer success, and how important it is that everybody is working together, unified throughout the whole process. So it's, great. And so you touched on it a bit on budget. So I don't want to ignore the fact that this is a very challenging time for a lot of companies right now. We are all navigating some really tricky waters. So tell us about how you think about budget, in this time when they're being frankly, probably reduced. What's your point of view?
I mean, it is a really good question. Maybe show of hands. This is the group participation moment of the show. How many people's budgets grew this year? Yes! There's a gentleman in the very back of the room whose budget has grown. You should hit him up for drinks.
Is he hiring?
Thank you, sir, for being brave. I appreciate that. It's tough, right? The macroeconomic climate that we're operating in is really, really tough. And I would say, even if we go back 3 years ago, in my experience, even in the places where marketing budgets and investments were growing, it was not growing at the pace of revenue growth. So what you actually have is marketing budget as a percentage of revenue is continuing to be constrained and be under pressure. So then we've got to ask ourselves, how can we use our very few dollars in the grand scheme of things as a cost center? How can we use our dollars super effectively, right? So I'll say a couple of things there. I will come back to data. That's the theme. I know I told you I started my career as a developer. That's why I kind of get into the weeds of the operational components of marketing. That science balanced with art is a passion of mine. So how do you tell amazing customer stories but make sure that they're data-driven? And then how do you use that data to understand what are the things that are most effective? The most effective not just in terms of reach and eyeballs, the most effective not just in terms of NPS, but really thinking about what are the things that differentiate and accelerate our path to revenue, right? And if we've got the right capabilities from a platform and tool perspective in order to do that through data, now your conversation changes. You as a marketer are able to say, I might only have, X dollars. I'm not even going to put a denominator on that one. I don't want to offend anybody in the room. I might only have X dollars, but how can I make sure that I tell everyone in my C-suite how I'm going to use those effectively for the maximum impact, right? The other thing I'd say is, as other companies, as many of us are under-investing in marketing, there might also be some really good opportunities to experiment, right? In terms of getting better budget effectiveness in places that may have been high cost and prohibitive because we were competing for eyeballs when budgets were a little bit thicker in years past. Go revisit that and think about, can you get better ROI now through some of those tactics that might have been cost prohibitive? If you want to be hyper targeted to the right personas, the right influencers for your brand, can you access them at a lower cost now because there's less competition because of the budget cuts? Think about those things, right? Because it's both about the impact and how you use the dollars in terms of, maximizing revenue, right? And maximizing that bottom line. But then also thinking about, where do you experiment? Where do you learn? And are there places you could be just a little bit, more effective because of the lack of competition in some places? So
I love that. Yeah. Well, LinkedIn did some research with Peter Field to look at, and essentially was looking at marketing strategies and how they impact the business outcome, right? Business growth. And this was back in current research, but looking back to 2008. And what we saw, which shouldn't surprise anybody, but it's nice to see the actual research, but is that these companies not just grew at 4.5 times the others, the ones that actually invested. So if you're investing in a time like this, which I realize is not easy, but if you are actually investing in a time like this, you will see that growth. 4.5 times growth, or even just share of voice growth. And that's a short-term impact, right? So you actually see that SOV, immediately almost. So it's great to, get some data behind, what you're saying here, Brett. Totally agree.
That's such a good point. And sometimes it's even just about pivoting, right?
Yep.
How do you pivot your dollars? So.
Yeah. Because it's not easy. Got to always be, constantly changing. Okay, well, we're going to finish this up. Just with any last thought, like tips, tricks, let's just get practical. What can we let this audience walk away with?
Yeah, I would say, again, the theme of my talk has kind of been data. And I will tell you, as a marketing executive, I love the details. I would challenge all of you to get into the weeds with your customer engagement data, right? And I'm talking about, when you look at your social engagement and the number of people that you're reaching, go back and ask yourself, are you reaching the right people? Are you reaching the people that matter? Do you want to celebrate the volume of people that you've engaged with? Or do you want to celebrate the quality of people that you engaged with? That's a very slight shift in terms of thinking, right? But it is super important to be, into these details, I think, so that you can create more connected customer experiences. The more that you know about each individual in your funnel, the more personalization and customization you can bring to whatever experience it is. It could be your digital experience, it could be your in-app experience, it could be your event experience, whatever that is. So I'd say get into the weeds on the data. If data's not your thing, and that's cool, it's not everybody's thing, become friends with a data scientist who loves that shit, right? And just get after it so that you ask them the right questions, right? You want to ask them, well, great, thank you so much for sharing that data, but did I get all the right accounts if I'm in B2B? Did I get the right individuals? How much are they spending, right? Getting into those details, I think, becomes so important. And then you actually start to create experiences that people love, right? That's what creates brand love, is when people feel like you're engaging with them in a personalized and high quality way, right? And I think, if we go back 10 years ago, so much of the marketing that we did, because of the lack of capabilities, was, it was spray and pray. And we were trying to look at, the highest volume of engagement possible. Where can I get the most people? That might not be the right strategy for y'all, right? So just think about that. That'd be my call to action.
I love it. Connected client experience through data. Well put. Great. Well, good. That's it. That's all we've got. I don't know who's up next. Questions? Great.
Turn on mic 3. Anybody have a question in the audience? Raise a hand. Question? No? Question back here.
Hi, my name's Kristen, and I'm from EverFi. As a marketing specialist, I love how you talk about quality. When you are looking at your KPIs and pillars, is supporting education initiatives one of those?
Absolutely. In fact, I actually think, and again, I'm going to make the statement a little bit specific to B2B, right? But if we really, in a services world, want to drive customer success, education and training is the new frontier for me, right? Because the only way that you can maintain that ARR, right, that annual recurring revenue, is if you are educating people in order to on how to use the things that you've provided them, right? So customer training, customer readiness, customer success is such a huge lever. And for me, that becomes part of the view of your customer, right? Again, moving from funnel marketing to life cycle marketing, right? So I think, there's so many companies, I think, that are doing that well. In terms of education, just webinar programs, training programs, insider programs. So absolutely a super important component.
Awesome. Any other questions?
Hi, Bob McKay from Odyssey. Question, there's Salesforce, there's other software products like that, but for customer engagement, is there some software that we should be looking into that you would suggest?
Yeah. There's too many to name, in all honesty. I'll give you a couple resources. Chief Martech does a really good, so chiefmartech.com does a really good job of kind of pulling together the best of marketing technologies and kind of CRM technologies in the industry. They do kind of a NASCAR slide that shows you all of the different kind of SaaS vendors that are out there. Bob, for me, the important thing is for us as marketers to think about CRM or customer relationship management as hand in glove with sales, right? We need to be looking at the same customer data. I'll give you an example, and this is not to offend any sellers in the room, but if you're a seller and you put your contact information in Salesforce, the first thing that you're worried about is that there's some well-intended marketer that's going to engage with that contact in a way that is not white glove as a seller would want it to be, right? So whatever tools you're using, whether it's Salesforce or it's Dynamics 365, whether you're using Eloqua or Marketo, Demandbase, 6sense for ABM and insights, like having a single connected sales and marketing tech stack is literally the foundation to success. I'll give you an example of something that we're struggling with at Cisco, just in full transparency. Cisco's kind of, if you think about what you all would probably think about Cisco, it's the company that that created the internet. I don't know that it's the sexiest brand right now. I'm hoping that myself and others are trying to change that a bit. But Cisco's grown their business through acquisitions. And every time we've acquired a company, that's another CRM system, that's another marketing platform, right? So finding a way, whatever you use, in order to connect it and break down silos between sales data and marketing data so that you're looking at it as customer engagement data is the key to success for me.
Thank you. Any other questions in the audience? Right up front is our last one.
Hi, Scott with Butler Till. There's a lot of noise in B2B marketing. I'm sure everyone here gets hit by a ton of B2B marketing. I'm just wondering, are there a few things that you found to be really effective to cut through that noise in the space?
Yeah. Awesome question. I am not giving you this answer because I'm here with my friend Christine from LinkedIn, but I am going to tout the benefits of LinkedIn very quickly, right? I mean, I think I am not the type of person that believes that email is dead. I just think we do shitty B2B email, right? And again, I'll give you an example. I'm new to Cisco. I've actually only been at Cisco for 4 months. What I do in my free time is I go to our property and I sign up for as much shit as possible so that I can actually see the customer experience in my inbox and go coach and expect different from my teams. Because we create chaos. Why do we create chaos? Because we're not thinking about the prioritized message that we want to deliver via email that's based on customer engagement data and the things that we want to sell. We're trying to sell everything to everyone, especially if you've got a really nice title. Then we want to sell everything to everyone at a very high level, and they don't want to hear what we have to say, right? So for me, it's being more targeted in all of your outbound tactics like email, but it's also using LinkedIn to be hyper-targeted, right? And being able to say, how can I give you a meaningful engagement through LinkedIn Sales Navigator or through some connection in the network that makes it less of a cold sales call and it's more of a warm introduction? Like LinkedIn has the tools, the capabilities, and the network for us in B2B to make that happen. For me, less is more. We need to be doing far fewer things in all of our outbound. We need to be also thinking about our third-party data, right? Like industry data in B2B is something that's super important in my world. Going where people are actually going to be, because that's a place where they can build community, they get time. Forums like this, right? Like that's the place that you want to go engage with people, but it has to be in an authentic way, right? It's not, I think in the old world we would have said, oh, well, crap. I think I got literally yesterday 5 emails from people trying to sell me lists, right? Like that's what happens, right? And then what do we as marketers do? Or sellers tell us to go buy the list. That's happened before too, right? So for me, just to sum it up, like it is being more targeted, less is more. You can still use email, but I would prefer that you're using some kind of social network or industry associations to engage with people in meaningful ways. If you do that, they will come to you when they're ready, right? But don't bombard people with, I've got to send an email every week, every month. And if you've got a house of brands like we do at Cisco, please find the technology that can connect them so that you're not all going after the same fish.
Excellent job. Excellent job. My mic's not on. Excellent job. Let's give it up for Christina Babbitts and Brett Rafuse.